LabCoatAgents podcast.
Welcome back, LabCoat Nation, to another episode of the LabCoatAgents podcast. And this one, I'm just going to tell you right now, stop what you're doing, pull over, get off the treadmill, sit down, listen, go grab a box of tissues, because this is a powerful freaking story right now. I met this amazing woman earlier today and heard a little bit of her story. And now we are meeting again to hear all of the story. And I'm going to tell you right now, I had chills, and I'm excited to listen to it again. So let me just give you a little teaser here. We're going to be talking to a realtor who's crushing it in the Augusta, Georgia area. Ranks number one in annual sales, over 1,500 transactions for over 400 million in volume. But that's not necessarily why we're talking. We're going to get to that. Why we're talking is because her story is massively impactful. Let me tell you this. If you think you've had a rough one, if you've had a rough life, a rough week, a rough year, let me tell you right now, this will blow that away. And I'm not going to say anything more because I'm going to let her tell the story. So welcome to the show, Venus Griffin.
Hi there. Thanks for having me a second time.
This is the real time. This is the real time.
Yes.
So, like I've already said before, let's start from the beginning. You tell us, our audience probably doesn't know who you are. Maybe a few do, but let's hear the story of kind of why we're talking today and kind of what led you to where you are today. And I know it's a long story, so I'm just going to strap myself in and listen.
Can they see me or just hear me?
Both.
Okay.
Most of our podcast listeners are probably listening, but this is also on YouTube, so some might be watching.
Okay, perfect. So my name is Venus Morris Griffin. I live in Augusta, Georgia. I've been a real estate agent for a little over 10 years. I got my real estate license to just help my husband pay for some of the things we wanted to do, but couldn't necessarily afford, like vacations or, just doing special things with the kids. My story starts back from when I was very, very young. I grew up in a very dysfunctional family. I had a great mother that had great issues. She struggled with prescription drug, issues her whole life, alcoholism. She was in and out of mental hospitals. One of my earliest memories as a child was to watch her fingernails. And if they turned blue, I was to call 911 because that meant, she wasn't breathing. So, my whole life, I don't know my father. I was born out of an adulterous affair. I've got two siblings, half siblings, and they, like me, went through the trauma of we live in this house, and on cold mornings you've got one room and you put blankets over the other rooms so that the wood burning furnace would keep you warm. I was nervous to bring any friends home. I had very few friends because, when you go in the kitchen and you turn the lights on and you see hundreds of roaches going everywhere, you're ashamed and you're embarrassed. And, my mom, I think she did the best she could do with what she had to work with. She married at 15 to a guy who was schizophrenic, and, they had a very dysfunctional marriage. He's trying to shoot her. She's trying to stab him. He's got 20 locks on the doors, divorces him, marries the guy that I grew up from age 3 until they divorced. And, my brother and sister, they also watched the tragedy. They watched my mother get arrested for, insurance fraud and thinking people were breaking in our house and being scared to death. I remember being in my bed, just shaking, thinking people are going to break in again. I'm 10 years younger than my sister, 9 younger than my brother. And, they unfortunately could not break out of the cycle. My brother was in and out of boys' homes. he just couldn't deal with, we all deal with adversity differently, and he just didn't, he couldn't deal with it. So, watched him at a very young age. He was sentenced to maximum security prison for a while, and I remember visiting him with, just like in a movie, one door comes all the way down while the other door comes down, and then the other door opens, and then you go into this big room. And I just, felt so sorry for him, because he was a good soul, but just had, been through so much and couldn't deal with it. And he just couldn't break out of it. My sister, the same way. She's, a sweet soul, but she turned to prescription drugs and abused them, and, alcohol. And she, lost her very young children when they were itty bitty. And, we haven't seen her in probably 15 years. The last time I think I saw her, she was in a mental hospital, and trying to convince me that she worked there versus being a patient. But, I never knew how to break out of the cycle, and I didn't know what to do, but I just knew I didn't want to be like everybody around me. So I tried to find good role models that I could look up to and see what they were doing with their lives, just to maybe emulate that. I was, I guess, 14 years old, just on the verge of homelessness, living with friends, trying to figure out, what to do. My mother, she was a great person, but had a very bad mental illness with prescription drugs and alcohol, and just, having the police take me out of the house in Maryland just because she's drinking too much, or throwing a big, 20-ounce 2-liter drink on my head, driving down the interstate, just to kind of torment me, because she's, just can't deal with her own life. So I always knew that I was different, and if I could just figure out a way out of the family, and what I saw in everyone else that was different from what I lived is, everyone was educated that I wanted to be like. They were happy, they had happy families, they had, husband and wife and children, and although they have their own problems, they didn't have, drug addiction, alcohol addiction, parents going to jail for trying to defraud insurance companies. And so, at 14, living on the verge of homelessness, I just said, I'm going to try to get out of high school. And then if I can get out of high school, then I can, I can get to college and figure out how to create a life like I see these other people. And I just, at a young age, I decided not to do, certain things like drugs. I've never tried a drug or marijuana or, drinking. I drank very, very little. To this day, I'll have an ice cream drink. I just kept thinking, okay, you do all the right things and, you can get through it. So I worked my whole life. I went to high school for 3 years, and I transferred high school, I think 6 or 7 times within 3 years. That's how much I bounced around, and it was really difficult. And so I figured out if I went to summer school and took an extra class that I could graduate a year early. And so I did that. I went to summer school, took my little English credit, and then off I was to college. So I went to college. I worked 2 jobs, supporting myself, got student loans, and, waitress at California Dream, and a waitress at Western Sizzle, and a nannied in between. I'd save all of my money to pay my rent first, my food second. And then, I remember going on a spring break and like having enough money. I ate like literally a sandwich a day, and I would half it for, lunch, and the other half but I didn't know it. I was really happy. I never felt despair. I was happy about where I was headed, because I knew, that if I made the right decisions, that good things would happen to me. And so that's where I met my husband of nearly 20 years there, at the University of South Carolina. And we dated probably a year and a half. And then he proposed to me, we married, and I came back to Augusta, North Augusta, which is just a minute from Augusta. And we were married nearly 20 years. And, I thought that I had life all figured out. I decided to put my career on hold. We had our first child. He could not have children naturally, so we had a donor. And when I had that first little baby boy, my whole life changed. I wanted to stay home. I wanted to give him what I'd never had, which was a stable family, a mom and a dad, and be involved in their life. And I wanted him to be proud of me. And just, so we had 6 children together. The first 4 we had in 5 years, and then we waited 5 years and had number 5 and number 6. And we looked like the perfect family. I thought, he had some issues with mental health, but after what I had gone through as a child, the abuse and just not even knowing where I was going to live at, and I would stay at one place until I felt like I was wearing a welcome out, then I'd go to another place. And I thought we had a really good marriage. It was better than anything I could have hoped for. And 17 years into the marriage, I thought, good things, you do all the right things, and good things are going to only happen to you. And sometimes that's just not the case. Like, bad things happen to good people. And, my life changed. He was the soccer coach, the football coach, the baseball coach. I was the youth minister at our church. I was the room mom. I was the PTO president. I was in the classroom. I mean, we looked like Barbie and Ken, and we just, I thought I had overcome that dysfunction, and I had made it. And, I tell when I speak all over the country now, your life can change in 10 seconds. And that's pretty much what happened to me. 17 years into the marriage, I get a phone call in the middle of the night, and it's from a prostitute. And, she said, I've been blackmailing your husband, and, he's been cheating on you for years with prostitutes, and, have all the evidence that you could ever want to see. We've drained everything out of your bank accounts, your kids' accounts. And so, when she called me, it was like out of the blue, and I didn't believe her. And so I woke my 15-year-old son up, and I said, honey, I need to go meet with someone, and I need you to listen out for your siblings, and I'll be back soon. And at the time, I was still breastfeeding my baby. I had a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old, 9, 11, 13, and 15-year-old. And so I went down to meet with this prostitute, thinking that, she was just trying to extort money out of us. We didn't have a lot of money. We were just blue collar people, paycheck to paycheck, but very happy. And, I was driving down there thinking, okay, I'm going to, figure out what's going on, because I know my husband would never do this. So I get to this hotel, and I knock on the door, and it was a very shady motel. And she comes, this very young girl, and she's fidgeting. You can tell maybe she's on something. She's very teeny. I'm a teeny person, but she was really teeny. And, I'm like meeting with her, and I'm sitting there thinking, oh my God, what's happened to this young soul that's made her prostitute her life out? I feel this like weird connection with this prostitute, who's basically just shattered my life. It's really strange. But so she's sitting there telling me all of the things, he's the big man. He's, they've taken everything from us. She would say he'd give our credit card to prostitutes, and they just go charge it up. He was just so careless and just such, just crazy. And still I'm trying to figure out if she's telling the truth. And then she gets her phone, and she's showing me photos of him naked with, driving on the road naked, just with women, and just things that you would never, ever like think are possible. And so I knew she wasn't lying at this point. And I think what had happened is she had kind of fallen in love with my husband, because he was very charming, and but he was also verbally abusive. And I think he began to to abuse her verbally. And so she just, I was easy to find. I'd got my real estate license, even though I just got my real estate license. You just Google me, Venus Morris Griffin, or Venus Morris at the time, and my cell phone pops up. But so she showed me these pictures on her phone, and I see it ring, and it's my husband's name on there. And she turns the phone to me, and I answer it, and I'm just like, I can't believe you would do this to our family.
You answered the phone. You answered the phone.
I answered the phone, and he was devastated, and he was apologizing, but he was also very furious and angry that she would do that. But I had no, she was like, "You're so nice." I had no problems with her because, she was a wounded soul. A woman doesn't do that unless they're a wounded soul. So I just, I left there, and I thought, I professed myself to be a Christian, and anybody can be a good wife during the easy times and say for better or for worse, for sickness and death. But it's like the really hard times that you find out who you are and what you're made of. And I just said, I'm going to fight for my marriage. Sex addiction's really no different than drug addiction or alcoholism. And I'm going to help him, and I'm going to show everybody that you can overcome really bad things. And I'm not going to personalize this addiction and think something is wrong with me. His issues are his issues. A lot of times as women, especially with someone that's unfaithful, we seem to think we could have done better. And it really has little to do with you. It's the other person has things. And so I just remember driving home thinking, okay, I'm going to save my marriage. I'm going to fight for it. We've been married nearly 20 years. We have 6 kids, and I called his mother. He has a really great family. And I told her everything, and they couldn't believe it either. Like, a lot of times you see women, especially, and like, they have all of these clues and they just ignore them. Well, there really were no clues. We were on the front row at church every single Sunday for 20 years. We had lunch together every day. We did everything together. And his mom was great. They sent him to Hattiesburg, Mississippi, to a sex addiction clinic, and he was there probably I don't remember, a month or so. And so part as the intervention, you have to come clean with everything you've done in order to recover with any addiction. You have to kind of make it right. And I'll never forget flying down to Mississippi with his mom and sitting on the plane with her and saying, why don't you have photos of my husband when, like, he played football at Carolina? She said, the thing is, what are you talking about? He never played football at Carolina. He never. And so, like, as I'm on this plane, my life is like unraveling. I'm like, everything I thought about this person, that he played football at Carolina, he stopped because he had this, tumor. And everything was like made up. It was something like out of a movie. And anyway, so he's there. I'm still committed to fighting for the marriage. And then while he's there, something comes out that he's done that's really bad. And it's so bad that they give him a lie detector test, and he fails it, and they give him another one. And they call me and they said, your husband was so nervous that we couldn't really administer it properly. You need to have a specific issue lie detector test in Atlanta. And it's like 98 or 99%. They will tell you if he's guilty of these things that we're suspicious of. And so he took the test because he was very good. he could convince anybody of anything. And I think he took it thinking he could beat it. And so he failed the test. And to make a very long story short, over the next 6 months, the district attorney was notified by some officials of what he had done, and they arrested him. They did not give him bail, and he was probably in jail for 6 months. And he had a trial, and he was convicted, and he got a 45-year sentence and a mandatory sentence of 21 years he had to serve before I was eligible for parole. And so I'll just never forget, I'm here, I've got 6 kids, I'm driving home from the jail, and I'm like, how do you tell your kids that their dad, who they thought was perfect, is going to jail for 45 years? So I sat all the kids down in a little circle. I was in a 2-bedroom. I was completely broke. I didn't even know how I could meet their basic needs. I had stayed home for 17 years. I didn't have a job. I just got my real estate license, and I'm like, I sat them down and said, I don't really know what we're going to do, but I know what I've done, and I know I'm going to work really hard, and I'm going to pick the cross up. I'm going to be a great mom, and we are not going to go jail. I said, the first thing we're going to do, I said, we're going to forgive your dad. And I said, we're never going to talk bad about him. And I'm going to take care of you. I don't know what that means. And my oldest son was amazing. He was 15 at the time. He's like, Mom, he says, you do what you need to do. I will take care of my siblings while you work to take care of us. And that's how my journey started. So I was in a 2-bedroom. I had like hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt. I had a house that was gutted. I had 4 kids sharing bunk beds, and a 5th child, my son, who was 15, in this very tiny room. And then baby was in there with me. He was still nursing. And I'll never forget my divorce attorney, because I filed for divorce immediately after the charges, as he's convicted. He said, Venus, I know you like this real estate thing, but you really need to think about getting a real job. It's 2009-ish. And he said, the market has crashed, everybody, even the good agents, they're getting out of it. He says, and I don't mean to be harsh, but you don't get child support from prison, and your family lives in trailers. He said, so you got to come up with a plan real quick on what you're going to do. And so I said, Tim, I'm okay. I'm okay getting a real job, whatever that means to you. I said, but I have been surviving on 1% my whole life, and you don't really know what I've got in me. And I have a work ethic like no other, and I've got 6 little kids looking to me, and I didn't want them to grow up like I did, dysfunctional, because I knew it was going to be hard in itself, just losing their dad, because he was a good dad in many ways, And so that's where my journey began with real estate. I got up every day. First thing I committed to doing was to taking care of myself, because I had enough common sense growing up to see, you got to put the oxygen mask on yourself before you can help other people. And so my attorney says, okay, what are you taking, Venus, to get you through this? I said, I'm not taking anything, Tim. I said, I get up every day and I run 5 miles. I said, I hate getting out of the bed at 5 o'clock. I said, but I know those endorphins are going. If I need medication, then I'll do that. But right now, I'm okay. I'm willing to do the work instead of looking for the quick fix. So I would run 5 miles. I would get my children up. I got them fed, and I committed to taking them to church every single morning, 5 days a week, Monday through Friday at 7 o'clock before school, because I knew that, this was bigger than me. I didn't know what I was going to do, but I knew, I just knew I needed something else. So we went to mass, even though they didn't like it, just to be honest with you. I just told them, you got to trust me. I don't know what I'm doing, but I feel like this is the right way. So I took them to mass, and then I put my little work suit on. I probably had 3 work suits, and I would just change the same one out, and I would go to work every day with nothing to do. And I would, my son said to me, Mom, if you research your field within, 6 months to a year, if you spend an hour on it, you'll become an expert in it. And so that's what I started doing. I would go sit in this little cubicle. I didn't have an office. I was just in a little cubicle, and I would just cold call people. I would drive around neighborhoods. I would knock on doors, because I knew if I failed, they failed. And so I would knock on doors, tell people how great that I would do if they would just trust me to list their house. And I actually would do it. And then, you know, that's like a domino effect. You do a good job, you do your word, you excel expectations, and then they tell somebody else about you, and then you do a good job, you know, keep your word and you excel the expectations. And then I started doing 2 to 3 open houses every single Sunday. And I did that for 8, 9 years, every single Sunday. Like I would call other agents and say, listen, I want to work for free. I just want to go and show your house and try to help you sell it. If you'll just let me, if I get a buyer in there, you know, let me have that buyer, and I want to try to sell your listing. And I would actually work at that open house. I wouldn't just sit there and let people come in. You know, they would come in, I would introduce myself, I'd get to be their friend, I'd know about their children, their family, what they loved, where they wanted to be. And if I didn't sell the house, which I did sell houses at my open houses, contrary to what research shows, I would sell houses and I would get buyers from it. And so I just kept every single day at the grind. I had no idea how I was going to do it. I made $20,000 the first part of my first year. My second year in the business, I made like 100,000. And again, this is in the recession when no one wants to be in real estate. You know, everybody is getting out of it. My third year, I'm making, you know, 200,000-300,000. My fourth year, I'm like, oh my God, like, how is this possible? But I was working like 70 hours a week. You know, and it was not complicated stuff. You know, it was as simple as knocking on doors, calling people like every day. I had a list. You know, if you know of anybody, everybody I knew, I'm calling, just trying to sell myself and being genuine about it, you know, not BSing people, just really putting it out there. I will work harder than anybody if you give me a chance. And so I became really successful. But again, it was just every day being in the grind of it. And one thing I didn't want to do is become this rock star agent and, you know, neglect my children. So my assistants knew at 6 o'clock to 7 o'clock or whatever time, or 5:30 to 7, they didn't put anything on my calendar. And I had a dinner with my children and we all sat at the table, all 6 of us, and we would go through our good thing of the day and our not so good thing. And they looked to me for their stability. And because I was strong and I committed, you know, to this day, we've never said anything negative about their father. And they've seen what I've done to take care of them. And now I'm like this powerhouse. You know, I'm grossing close to $2 million this year. I made an additional, I think I've made over $1 million since January, just flipping a few properties. You know, it gets easier, but my story is, you know, you got to put in the grind. You got to have a why, and you got to be committed. I started working out, you know, 2 years ago with my daughter, and she takes me to the gym and she says, Mom, she says, we're going to get up and work out at 5 o'clock every morning, lift weights for 2 hours, and then you might start to see results in about 8 months. And I'm like, what do you mean 8 months? And so I wanted to support her. I didn't really believe that I would have a 6-pack in 8 months. But my point in this sharing the story is month 1, 2, 3, I'm working out every single day. I'm seeing no results, but I keep at it. Month 4, working out every day, doing the same thing, no results. But month 5, 6, I'm starting to see a 1-pack, a 2-pack. And really by month 8, I had like this incredible 6-pack because I had been consistent. And the same thing is in real estate. You know, people say the market is so hard. Right now, it's the opposite. You know, I'm going head to head with people. We're having 5 and 6 offers on properties, bidding wars. Well, you can still succeed. You know, so far, I mean, I made, I think, $600,000. And if I don't make 100,000 in a month, I think something's wrong with me. You know, I average from $100,000 to $250,000 a month. And I tell people, I said, you know, I am no one special. I'm not. You know, you just have to commit to, you know, not focusing on the 80% no's that you get, and to really focusing on the 20% yeses. And I told my kids when we went through this, I said, it is none, I mean, people were saying awful things about us in the community. I said, it is none of our business what other people say about us. In our personal life, in our business life, we're going to stay focused and we're going to work hard, and we're going to show the world that we can get through anything, and not just get through it, but we can succeed and we can thrive. And that's what we've done. It's still hard. I still wake up some days and I feel like I just want to cry because it's hard, but you get up. I still get up every day and work out at 5 o'clock. I hate it. People say, "Oh, I love it." I don't like it, but I know if I do the right things, if you do the right things in this industry, there's so many tools. There's more than one way to skin a cat. The way I did it might not work for somebody else, but if you keep at it every day, you put 40, 50 work hours in there, you're going to be successful in the real estate industry. And as long as you can look up, it doesn't matter what happens to you. If you can look up, you can get up. And I have fallen to my knees so many times, but I am determined to just keep doing the best I can do every day. And, I never intended on being this successful. I never finances and what you make doesn't make you successful. I believe that what you overcome to achieve is what really defines success, not necessarily what you achieve monetarily. I mean, that just kind of happened. And now, my son, the biggest reward now, my children are 25, 23, 21, 19, 13, 11. And then I remarried and had a menopause baby at 44. So I'll be 50 on my birthday. So I have a 5-year-old. But my son, he is the president of his dental class at there's only one dental school in Georgia, and he will be a doctor in a year from now. And the most rewarding thing I've had in my life was when he gave this speech at the opening ceremonies after he was elected president, and he thanks everyone and recognizes his peers for their achievements. And then at the end of it, he says, "I want my mom to stand up, because when the world threw the towel in on our family, nobody else could have gotten up with 6 kids and carried us. And I will be Dr. John Morris because of the influence that she's had." And so it's still hard. We still struggle. Like, having 7 kids is crazy, I had a daughter that got pregnant in college, and she's got twins, and she's this rock star mom. Things happen. You just have to decide, okay, like my son said when my daughter got pregnant, "Mom, she's not on drugs. She doesn't have cancer. She's just taking responsibility." And now I've got these amazing twin grandbabies that are going to be 4 on their birthday. And I'm just like, as long as you keep the right attitude, you work hard. She finished college in 4 years with an accounting degree, which is very hard. You can do anything. You can get through anything. And I've just finished a book, and it'll be out this year. And in my book, it just shows people. And my talk is not just for real estate people, but it even tells how I've developed wealth. Now I make a lot of money, but I'm starting to develop wealth because, like flipping these properties. I just bought $1 million beach house, and I'm paying cash for it. I live in a $2 million plus house. I have 0 debt on it. I've paid all of my kids through school, dental school. I have 0 debt. Every car I have is 0 debt. Because when you go through tragedy, I want to make it like, if I work at McDonald's, I don't lose anything. So I try to live below my means. And, you can really do anything. So.
Wow. That's the longest monologue ever.
Sorry, I don't know how to shorten it.
No, I mean, I'm a guy's guy, and I was fighting back tears a few times. So I can't imagine what our listeners are going to get out of this. And I there's a lot to unpack there. And I think there were several times that I just wanted to say, it just kept happening. It just kept happening, and something kept happening. And you just made the statement not long ago that, you define success by what you can overcome, which makes me feel like crap. I've had a really easy life. I mean, I've been very fortunate. And so it's like, on that measuring stick, I'm thinking to myself, crap, I what do I have to do to achieve that success?
Well, again, I think success is family, and I think it's the relationships you have with people. And as long as you can meet your basic needs, live within your means, I don't think your happiness is necessarily increased by more money. So I think there's so many different definitions of success, and And I don't think anyone, even my husband, ex-husband, you're not defined by the worst thing you've ever done. Good people make really bad decisions, and you gotta forgive people and let that go, and you gotta move on.
Yeah.
And I think that's where we get hung up a lot of times is, people ask me, how do you trust another man? I'm like, it never occurred to me that there was something wrong with me. I'm not gonna take this on my shoulders. I'm not perfect. I mess up all the time, but I'm gonna make a decision. It's easy as you make a decision that you're gonna be happy no matter what happens to you. It's easy to be happy and great when everything is going good, but you have to decide, if you know that hard times, they're gonna still come. I know I'm gonna still have more hard times, but you just have to know that they're temporary. And you try to make the best decisions, and we all mess up from time to time, but you try to make the best decisions, and you're going to get through any storm, and you can be stronger for it, and you can help other people. And it's hard for me to share the story. I still get emotional. My husband's been in prison now 10 years, and I send him, my friends think I'm crazy, I send him pictures of all the children every year with an update on everything they're doing, because I want to treat him the same way I'd want to be treated if I were there. And I just try to do the best I can do. And
you're a unique individual in so many ways. And I think I'm just give a couple of thoughts. Most people would have maybe wrung the neck and or killed the prostitute when they walked into that room. And if not her, they would have done that to their husband when they got back to them. And here you are driving home thinking, I'm going to make this work. That takes, I'm sitting here thinking about it, like, what would I do if I was in your shoes? And I'm not a physical person, but I don't think I would have even thought twice in that moment to forgive and work through it. I would have said, where's my attorney's number? Like, I'm done and you're out of here. You know what I mean? And I don't want to make this necessarily about that, although this is, because it's interesting. On one side of the coin, we talk about, obviously your personal side, which is, we would be hard pressed to find somebody with a more difficult story. I'm sure there's somebody out there, but you're in the top, you're in the top percent that you don't want to be in on that one. But then on the other side of the coin, like, there's nothing profound about what you've done to find success, which is super powerful in and of itself, because everybody's looking for, and this industry, I mean, what do the stats say right now? There's 1.45 million realtors and 1 million homes for sale.
Yeah.
That's kind of a problem, because it tells you that the barrier to entry is a little bit too low. People just get into it and they don't know what to do with themselves. And then they get here and they're looking for easy street.
Yeah.
People need to hear this message beyond the powerful side of what you've overcome, but just the simplicity of, hey, I don't have any secret sauce. I just grinded my ass off. I mean, that's amazing. And actually, so I got a couple of questions for you. So first question, when you're talking to that young agent, when you're talking to that agent who's new to the business and says, oh my God, like, it's almost defeating to hear what you have to say, because it's like, I don't want to work hard, especially, you think about younger generations nowadays. What do you say to them? What do you say to somebody who says, how do I do it?
What I would say is that you can achieve any level of success in this business that you want to. You have to decide what your motivation is, what your why is, why are you doing it? And you have to go for it. You have to, I had a very high-end client of mine who got his real estate license, who was very successful in a different industry, who says to me, I'm not going to put $100,000 buyer in my car. Well, guess what? He thought he could buy his way into this industry. A year later, he's out of it, because you got to start at the bottom. You got to work your way up. You got to prove your worth. And you can't worry about what people say about you, what people think about you. You got to be willing to outwork everyone. You got to be able to, you got to put your sleeves up. If you're not, I tell people that aren't successful that I don't know how to do it. I don't know what you're doing. I'm like, well, how many open houses do you do before the COVID thing? And we can do open houses here now again, but what are you doing to be successful? And, they're not doing anything. I said, well, you can't really complain if you're sitting here telling me that you're not calling every agent in town begging them to do an open house for you. I said, like the basic grassroots, that's where it starts. You got to get your feet wet. You got to develop confidence. And you only do that by starting at the bottom and working your way up. I just closed on a $60,000 trailer this month. I sell $1 million properties, but I'm not too good. I still work with anybody. I am not too good to go out there and treat that person who lives in a trailer with the same dignity and respect that I will the $1 million buyer. A lot of agents don't do that, but it's a trickle effect. One thing leads to another. Success, it's like a ladder. You got to keep climbing it. And young people these days, they expect instant gratification. That's not the way it is. It's still hard. I still, again, if I'm not making 100, I make at least 100,000 a month. I think something's wrong, and I'm working hard. I went to Jamaica for a wedding this past weekend. I took all six of my 7 children, and I'm on the sidelines working, because that's what it takes to be successful. Now, I've probably got about 5-7 more years of this. I've got 4 in college right now and 1 in a private high school. And so I don't intend to work like this forever, because I'm building my wealth. I'm getting smarter with it, but you got to start out at the bottom, and you got to be not too proud, not too good to get down there and do it. Yeah. And if you want to be a good agent, you can Google it. There's 15,000 things. Focus on what suits your personality and go for it. And don't focus on, 80-90% no's. Focus on that 10%. Another rule I have for myself is I don't ever let myself think bad of somebody. If you think the best of other people, you're going to be more successful. I had an interview today for a listing. I get probably 99% of the listings I interview. They told me they were interviewing other agents. I'm like, that is really smart. I said, it is like a shoe. You got to have confidence to know what you bring to the table. And when you have that confidence, you are going to attract people to you. And it's not something you can teach people. It's something that you've got to learn through hard work and determination. Yeah. And you got to not settle for the market's too hard right now. I mean, you got to know that you can figure out a way, in when everybody's foreclosing and getting out of the business. I got 6 kids. My attorney's saying, get out, get a real job. Are you stupid? Yeah. I'm like, maybe, but I've got work ethic. And it's that simple. I mean, you can be successful at picking up trash, and pick up the trash first, then find out how to buy the trash truck, and then start your own business. Really, we overcomplicate things. We see people up here, and we're all the same. Yeah. We're all the same. You just have to decide what you want, and you got to go after it. I just bought a $200,000 duplex a couple of years ago, and this investor calls me and says, hey, do you have any duplexes? I said, well, I've got one that I would sell for the right price. He gives me $876,000 for it 2 years later. I have no debt. It's like crazy, but you keep working, doing the right things. It might not feel like that day things are right, but over time, you're going to start to see momentum. You're going to start to see progress, and you can become unstoppable. And, when I became successful, there was this agent, Clearstone. She was the top agent. And I looked at her, and she had such class and dignity. I said, I want to be like her. And I learned from her that you don't have to trash other real estate agents. You don't have to, you can lift other people up. I finally became the #1 agent in her prime, but I didn't take anything from her. She was still extremely successful, so there's room for us all to be successful. You got the work ethic, you can make something happen.
Yeah. Well, first of all, 2 questions. One is a goofy one. Are you still in touch with that attorney?
So, he had a lot of respect for me, and he really apologized to me years later. He had open heart surgery and died last year.
God.
But yes, he did say, Venus, I've never seen anybody with your determination and will, and thank God you didn't listen to me, because you make more money than me now. So he was a great guy. And
that's what I was getting at. But now a real estate question again. So for that young agent who's struggling and saying, okay, so obviously there's the open house. That's relatively
That's
easy,
so
right?
easy.
It is easy, except like to now when they're not even holding houses open because they don't have to, but that's all cyclical. Everything's going to come and go, right? But
It's coming back.
when somebody doesn't have experience, so you said you were calling, you were calling homes, you were calling sellers, you were calling listings and saying, give me a chance.
And they would ask me that question, how much experience do you have?
Yeah.
And you got to be smart about it. So what I would say is, I feel like I've been selling real estate my entire life. You just say, I feel like I've been doing it my entire life. I love what I do. I'm not a salesperson, but I don't take an overpriced listing. And so I'm going to show you a book. I bring one of my listing appointments, a book where I spend a few hours researching. I show them everything that's listed, everything that's under contract, everything that is sold within the last 6 to 12 months. And so I come with such an impressive packet that they know when I leave, I've done my homework. And so when you say, I feel like I've been selling it forever, I've spent so many hours doing this, I want to sit down and show you this, then they appreciate the honesty, and you're being honest with them. But you don't have to say, I've sold one house. You just say, I feel like I've been doing it forever.
And nobody ever questioned that and said, well, answer the question. How many years have you been doing it?
Maybe one early on, maybe two. And, I think I responded by saying, I don't have as much as experience as maybe some of my competitors, but what you're going to get from me, you will not find anybody that will outwork me. Yeah. I said, you'll be able to contact me 24/7. You will get service like no one else. And if you're not happy with me, it's like a marriage. You tell me and I will self-correct. I said, but I can give you a list of everybody that's used me who will put their reputation on the line for me. You have to show that you believe in yourself. And when they see that passion and you say, you give me a chance, I'll be the best real estate agent you've ever had. Yeah. And maybe use your life experience for you and say, this agent, she's really busy. You're not going to get the self-care that I'm going to give you. You're going to be me. You got to, whatever your circumstances, you got to figure out how to work it to your advantage.
I love it. Well, let's we're running long on time and I don't really care. Usually most podcasts I do care. I don't care here because you're just that good. I want to fast forward real quick and I do want to be mindful of your time, but let's fast forward to today. So let's fast forward to when the success really started to happen. So I guess it's a twofold question. One, do you have any good advice for agents that are at that point where it's time to scale? And how they scaled their business, because clearly you can't do 1,500 transactions and 400 million by yourself. And then that's question number one. The question number two is, what advice do you have an agent in today's world? So let's start with the first one first.
So I was so broke initially. My first assistant was my very best friend, Rhonda Wallace, and I could not even pay her the first year that she worked for me. But she believed in me. And she said, Venus, you don't worry about paying me. I will catch you up. You can catch me up next year, whatever. So she made 10 or 15%. And I think when she went she still works for me part-time. I think she was making $160,000 a year working for me. But I would say you have got to look at the big picture and you've got to reinvest the money you're making. You've got to brand yourself. Like I walk down the street, people know me. Like, it's kind of weird. Like my kids say, Mom, people think you're like famous at our school. I've branded myself so well. Like there wasn't one billboard on Washington Road when I got into real estate. Now, like there's probably 25 agents. I've got billboards everywhere with my face, the big V. Now I just put Venus Morris Griffin. People know me. You brand yourself. You put money into it. It takes money to make money. You got to be able to just know you're going to be eating ramen noodles. And in that first year, pay somebody to do all the busy work. When I went on my interview today, they said, okay, what do? Are you going to hand me off to your assistant? I'm like, absolutely not. I said, I'm going to market your house. I'm going to show your house. I'm going to sell your house. And when it goes under contract, I have people to do the busy work. I said, you don't want me doing paperwork that I can pay somebody $15, $20 an hour. That's very, very important, but you want me to delegate that to someone else. And so you have got to be willing to not be greedy, and you got to put that money and you got to treat yourself, your real estate business, like a business. And I'll tell you the other thing I can tell you is you won't believe how many agents show up in a pair of jeans for an interview. If you want to be the best, you got to show up. I mean, I have a 3-piece suit on every day. I mean, I can climb a tree in these hills I'm so used to them. You got to dress for success if you want to be a big dog. You know, my first suit was like $100, you know, and I'd wash it and wear it every 2 days. You got to figure out a way to, you know, you got to dress the part, you got to play the part, and you got to spend money. And you won't have the money initially, but when the moment you get it, you take that money, you reinvest it. Just like all these properties I've flipped, I reinvest it. So now I've got a lot of money. But if I had taken the money and go shopping with it or spend it on a frivolous vacation, then you can't grow. So now I have 5 assistants, you know, and I've got one that's just responsible for closings, contract to closing. We have it down to a system. I've got one responsible for listing. She measures my houses, she gets the listings online, make sure everything's perfect. I've got one that's just in charge of emails. When you email me, I don't see one email. She goes through every email, she replies it. And then I've got one assistant that is a backup if I'm like a scheduled appointment, because I like being directly involved with my clients. But if I've got other appointments, I'll say she can show you and I'll come if you like it right after, or you can wait on me, whichever one. And then I've got one that's in charge of the financial aspect. So
I was going to ask you how big your team is. So 5 assistants, what else? Buyers agents, listing agents?
5 assistants, 2 of them are licensed, so they can help. And what I've learned is people want Venus. They don't want the assistant. So I've learned over time that I've got to develop the relationship with them first and then bring the assistant in after the relationship is developed. I don't just farm them off because they trust me. Like before they write an offer, they've got to talk to me. But I don't write offers. My assistants do all that. It's really fun now. And
how many transactions are you doing a year?
So I think I closed 50 something sides last month.
Okay, so just do the math.
It's like crazy. Well, no, I mean, it ranges between probably 175 and 200. My point is the market is crazy right now. People say they can't do it. I've had my best month ever. You know, you can do it in any market. You just got to be willing to be aggressive, you know. Yeah. And when I'm writing contracts for clients, I treat when I'm the buyer's agent, I do that same research. This is what you need to be at. You know, we got 4 people bidding this. How bad do you want this house? You got to come $20,000 ahead to have a shot at it, or you got to come 50. And if you don't want to do that, that's fine. I get that. But then when they lose the house, they know it's because of them and not for me, you know, because I'm going to win every time. And then you have that appraisal contingency in there. So they're not going to do something that's silly.
Yeah. What's the one piece of advice you'd give somebody today in today's world?
People aren't going to like you when you get in this business. The more successful you become, people aren't going to like you. And you got to focus on knowing who you are, doing the best job you can do for your clients, being honest, holding yourself to a private standard. And when you do that, you're going to be successful.
It's been amazing. We're definitely going to have to talk to you about bringing you to our live events when they happen again. I think you would be an awesome person and inspiration to be on stage. So hopefully we can make that work. This is amazing. I'm glad I got to listen to the story twice. And I look forward to the book. What's it called?
So it's called Validated: Learning to Matter and Breaking the Cycle of Abuse. It won't be out till, you know, several more months. It's completed. There's some major publishing companies. I've got a person in California and one in Utah that have kind of taken the book and they're taking it to the next level. So it's done, but you know, we want it perfect. And you know, the book is meant to change lives. I think it's going to be very impactful.
I mean, this has got nothing to do with real estate, to be honest. That just happens to be your path. Yes. I mean, in my story is, you know, my message to people, it doesn't matter what happens to you. Yeah. It doesn't matter. You can get through anything. You know, you just have to know that it will pass, and that as long as you do the right thing every day, get up, no matter how hard it is, commit to being excellent. Give yourself, I gave myself morning time. You know, I'd let myself cry for a minute or two a day, but then I'm like, that's it, no more. You know, just get busy, put your big girl pants on. Don't be a victim. I am not a victim. What happened to me was awful. I am happy. I love my life.
It's still hard sometimes, but that's okay. We think when our life is hard that we're doing something wrong, and that's not true. When it's hard, it means we're making progress. You just got to look at it. Okay, it's hard, but we're making progress. I walk in my backyard. I just did a $600,000 pool renovation and paid cash for it. I walk back there. It looks like the Ritz-Carlton. I'm like, God, how did this happen? It's just like a dream. You just wake up one day after years of just doing the right thing, these simple steps. It's not brain surgery. And you're going to be like, wow, Venus was right. You just work hard and you're going to be successful. So.
Yeah. I mean, there is nothing that anybody can say. There's no excuses, I think, is the best way to say it. Like, there's nothing that you can't do if you can break the pattern. And that's amazing. And for those of us that are in my shoes, that are fortunate to have been raised by a loving family and not, it's humbling, to be honest with you. I mean, it's an amazing story. I can't wait to share it. I know that this is at the time of recording, so this won't come out for a little bit, but I know you're going to be live in LabCoatAgents. So hopefully people by the time they listen to this, maybe they've caught that, but you can go watch this on YouTube. So if you want to go see what this, what Superwoman looks like.
I'm not Superwoman. I am no one special. I'll say that 100 times. I just got up every day and put one foot in front of the other. I am no one special. I still fail. I am not.
I respectfully disagree. I interview a lot of amazing people. You're pretty amazing. I'm not going to lie to you.
So tell your viewers, I'm on Instagram. If they could, follow me there, it'll have like updates on the book.
How can they find you? What's your name on Instagram?
Venus Morris Griffin. I'm on Instagram and Facebook. I think they have me other places too. I'm challenged with technology. I have assistants that do that for me. But yeah, so.
That's fantastic. Venus, it's been an absolute pleasure. It's been great to get to hear your story and meet you. And I hope we can stay in touch. No, I love it. This has been great. Thank you so much.
Take care.
LabCoatAgents Podcast.